higher again after its debut yesterday. Hit a valuation of $100 billion yesterday, but it's well off that level now. And the coverage initiations have started. BTIG putting a buy rating and a $500 price target on shares. That's nearly 50% higher than current level. Says Coinbase is the gold standard of digital exchanges and should be the biggest winner from the Bitcoin boom. Deidre, what's your reaction to how Coinbase is trading, how it came out yesterday, and what people are saying about it now?
My reaction is that it doesn't matter all that much, because this is certainly one story that is all about the long term. I mean, I'm glad to hear analysts switch up their language a little bit, the gold standard of crypto exchanges. I've also been heard from many people it being the Google of crypto. That remains to be seen. But the marquee moment of seeing a crypto company go public is about its use cases in the future. It's about blockchain. It's about decentralized finance. It's not necessarily about where Bitcoin or Coinbase itself is trading today.
I think you hit an important point there, and that is that blockchain is really the nub of this whole thing, whether it's Bitcoin or some other thing or NFTs. Our friend Jason Trenner sent me a note the other day, Dom, about Bitcoin. And he said the threat to Bitcoin is regulatory, specifically that governments don't like it. They don't like the idea because it impedes their ability to collect taxes, and that ultimately they see it as an existential threat to the government and to their currencies. What say you?
I'm not sure, because Coinbase is already issuing 1099s to many of their clients right now, showing profits and what they've made so far on trading those platforms. Governments may not like it because they don't understand it, they don't know it yet. But what it does is it legitimizes cryptocurrency in that world when governments do put more scrutiny on it. You could almost argue that many of these companies want a little bit more scrutiny, want a little bit more regulation. It seems so counterintuitive, but if that happens, it's like the government saying, okay, we get you kind of, but we're going to tax you. That means we acknowledge the fact that you exist and that you are legitimate in your operating entities. That's going to be a big deal for sure. And if they keep doing that, and by the way, digital wallets, when I first signed up for a digital wallet years ago, there was no identity kind of check, anything like that. These days, for many of the most popular digital wallets that you sign up for out there, in order for you to transact or move any of that cryptocurrency around, you have to have a layer of know your customer protection in there. You got to submit copies of your driver's license, photo IDs, government IDs, something like that. So that could be part of the story. That this next evolution, Tyler, will be about governments getting to know the crypto world a little bit better.
All right, Seema, a final thought from you. Jason also points out that it can be a threat to a government's ability to manage monetary policy, these cryptocurrencies.
And speaking of monetary policy, Tyler, some of the biggest names in government and central banks, from Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary, to Christine Lagarde of the ECB, have been sounding the alarm around cryptocurrencies and the need for more regulation to be laid out, calling on Bitcoin being used to fund illicit transactions and terrorist financing. So there's still a cohort of individuals who are not approving the use of cryptocurrencies, and I think you're still going to see that infighting continue.
Well, Jason concludes by saying Bitcoin is going to go up until someone stops it. We'll see. It's going up. Not today, but it's been going up a lot. Next up, a growing list of lawmakers, mostly in Republican-led states, are fighting back against requiring proof of COVID vaccination to travel or enter certain venues, claiming it is a violation of privacy. While it's not a majority opinion, it could have widespread impact as we try to get back to, quote, normal life here in the United States. Seema, you've been following this story for us. It goes to questions of, can cruise lines require a so-called vaccination passport to get on? Can restaurants do it? Can states ban companies from doing that? Or do companies have a wide latitude in determining, particularly those in transport, in determining who can travel and who can't?
It's become a huge debate right now, Tyler, across the nation, and largely Republican opposition saying, South Dakota governor saying that the use of a vaccine passport would be, quote, un-American. You have Florida's Governor DeSantis citing privacy issues, and Governor Kemp of Georgia, who I spoke to last week, who says he's already facing a lot of heat around his controversial voting law, also joining this group of Republicans who do not approve the use of a vaccine passport, excuse me. And caught in the middle of all this are these travel companies, more of them now saying that we do think a vaccine passport is key to lifting international travel restrictions and also allowing events, sporting leagues, weddings, conferences to really resume earlier rather than later. So this debate will continue. And, when you look at where Americans are allowed to travel right now, there are a handful of countries, but many do require proof of vaccination.
Deirdre, jump in.
Well, once you politicize this issue, what's key is that you're unlikely to see sort of a big tech company, which may be in the best position to sort of roll out a vaccine passport, do so, because they don't want any more scrutiny. So what you're going to have now is this proliferation of different apps and different vaccines passports that may not necessarily work with each other, that may not have the best privacy protection. So it's a messy subject. I'm not saying it shouldn't be politicized, but tech's role in this is going to be very important. I think that what Seema just laid out makes it difficult to imagine that big tech at least, is going to get involved. And even if they did, Tyler, remember the Apple-Google partnership on contact tracing that was hailed as sort of unprecedented partnership? It didn't go anywhere.
It went nowhere. It amounted to nothing. This has become not just a battle between the vaxxers and anti-vaxxers. It's become a political question about freedom. Governor DeSantis of Florida saying you have a right to live your life in our society. You can go to a restaurant, get on a cruise ship. You can go to a movie theater without the company demanding that you show them your health information. Final thought, Dom, very quickly.
Why not just focus on testing passports? Forget about the vaccine passports. We've been using testing passports this entire pandemic. Just prove that you've taken a test and it's negative and do whatever you want.
All right. We'll move on now to Uber. Uber is driving employees toward returning to the office, saying it expects office staff to report in person at least 3 days a week starting in September. Uber claims a hybrid model gives employees the freedom to do their best work from anywhere. It's been a mixed bag of return to work plans for the tech companies. Last month, Amazon announced a return to an office-centric culture once the pandemic ends, and while Twitter told staffers to stay at home as it focuses on decentralizing its workforce. This is an area, obviously, Deirdre, that you're following very closely. Many more companies have to make decisions soon. A lot of them are going to the Uber sort of 3 and 2 model.
Yeah, some notable ones. Alphabet, Google was certainly one that said you have to at least live close to the office. But there has really been this divide. Everyone agrees that there's going to be some kind of hybrid future of work, but the extent of that is still very much being, decided upon in different ways by different companies. One thing that some might argue regarding the Uber and Google model is that if you require employees to come in and live close to the office, that's going to limit your talent pool. They can't start to hire people from Austin or Miami or Seattle or other places that are seeing this growing tech presence. So they could be cutting their nose off despite their face. But of course, those that say they should be coming into the office on a regular basis say there's no substitute for face-to-face innovation.
It's really interesting, Seema, because earlier in the pandemic, and certainly now as well, a lot of CHROs, chief people officers, CEOs were saying, one of the things we've learned that has been a benefit of the work at home or work from anywhere is that our talent pool is then literally global. We can go anywhere. We can tap into workers no matter where they live or no matter what their personal circumstances are. So there may be caregivers who live in Arkansas, not in Menlo Park, who could be recruited to do work and are ready to work, but because they are giving care to either children or adults at home, they couldn't do it but for working at home.
And that's what makes this decision around companies now over time requiring employees to come back to the office such a complex issue to get around, especially when you have caregivers and others who are still have kids at home who aren't back in school. So this is why this is such a loaded topic. But I think what Uber is announcing here is a conversation that is happening across a lot of companies with this vaccine rollout gathering pace. When is the right time to issue a communication to employees and sort of unveil our back to work plan?
Yeah, it's going to be very, very, very tricky and very hard to get right. And the trick for managers and leaders, whether you're CEO or a middle manager, is How can I be fair to everybody?
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.